Your room shouldn't feel this hot. Not when the AC is running. Not when the thermostat says everything is normal. And definitely not at night. But somehow, one room in the house always feels different. Hotter. Heavier. Almost trapped. The air feels thick. The ceiling feels warm. And no matter how low you set the thermostat, that room never really cools down. Now most people blame the air conditioner. They think it's weak, undersized, failing. So they buy fans, portable AC units, blackout curtains, even completely new HVAC systems. Thousands of dollars. Same heat. Because the real problem usually isn't the AC. It's heat absorption. And most homes are absorbing enormous amounts of heat every single day, especially through the roof. Now here's what most people never realize. Sunlight doesn't just brighten your house. It loads it with thermal energy. Hour after hour. Your roof absorbs it. Your attic traps it. Your ceiling stores it. And eventually, your room starts radiating that heat back into the air around you. That's why some bedrooms still feel hot long after sunset. The heat never left. Now here's where things get interesting. Decades ago, before modern air conditioning became common, people already understood this problem, especially in desert regions, Mediterranean villages, farming communities, hot climates where summer temperatures could become dangerous. And they discovered something surprisingly simple. White mineral powder. Not electronics. Not compressors. Not expensive cooling systems. Powder. Because bright mineral surfaces reflect sunlight differently than dark surfaces. That's the secret. Most modern homes absorb solar heat. Older cooling methods rejected it. And one cheap powder changed everything. Lime. A bright white mineral powder used for centuries in hot climates around the world. Villages across Greece, North Africa, the Middle East, Mexico, southern Spain, even parts of India, covered homes in white mineral coatings for one reason: heat control. Because white surfaces reflect enormous amounts of solar radiation before heat can build inside walls and ceilings. That's why white buildings in hot climates feel noticeably cooler. Not psychologically, physically. Researchers studying reflective surfaces discovered that bright white mineral coatings can reduce surface temperatures dramatically under direct sunlight, sometimes by over 20 degrees. And once less heat enters the structure, rooms below stay cooler naturally. Now here's the crazy part. Modern roofs regularly exceed 150 degrees during summer, especially dark shingles. Black roofs absorb enormous amounts of solar energy. And once that heat enters the attic, it spreads everywhere. Into insulation, into wood framing, into ceilings, into upstairs rooms. Your AC isn't just cooling air anymore. It's fighting stored solar energy. And that battle never ends while the structure keeps absorbing heat all day long. Now imagine reducing that heat before it enters the room. Everything changes. The attic stays cooler. The ceiling stays cooler. The walls absorb less warmth. And suddenly, the room feels dramatically easier to cool. Now here's where this $2 powder comes in. Hydrated lime. One of the oldest reflective building materials in human history. Simple. And surprisingly effective. When mixed properly into reflective coatings, it creates a bright surface capable of bouncing sunlight away before thermal buildup happens. That's why old Mediterranean homes stayed cooler without electricity for centuries. They weren't cooling the room afterward. They were preventing heat from entering in the first place. That's the hidden difference. Now modern cooling systems usually focus on reaction. The room gets hot. Then the AC removes heat. But reflective systems work differently. They reduce heat absorption before it becomes a problem. And that changes everything. Now imagine two identical rooms. Same weather. Same sunlight. Same insulation. Same AC system. But one roof absorbs solar heat aggressively, and the other reflects much of it away. The difference inside feels enormous. Not because one room has stronger cooling. Because one room absorbed less heat from the start. Now here's something most people never think about. Your ceiling matters more than your thermostat. Especially upstairs. because heat naturally rises and collects near upper surfaces. And once ceilings absorb thermal energy, the entire room slowly becomes warmer underneath. That's why upstairs rooms feel hotter even with identical vents. The heat source is physically closer. Now here's where old architecture becomes fascinating. Ancient builders understood reflective cooling long before electricity existed. Greek island homes, white desert villages, traditional Spanish buildings. Everything bright, everything reflective. Because dark materials absorb heat aggressively, white materials reject it. Simple physics. And physics never changed. Only construction trends did. Now modern homes often use darker roofing materials because they look attractive. But darker surfaces absorb dramatically more heat. That means hotter attics, warmer ceilings, higher cooling demand, longer AC runtimes, higher electricity bills. Now here's where things become even more interesting. NASA uses reflective white coatings on spacecraft for the exact same reason. Not decoration. Heat control. Because sunlight itself carries enormous thermal energy. And reflective surfaces reduce absorption before overheating happens. Old builders already understood this principle centuries ago. Now here's what most homeowners never hear. Cooling isn't only about producing cold air. It's about controlling heat absorption. That's the real battle. And once you understand that, everything changes. Now imagine walking into a room during late afternoon. The ceiling feels warm. The walls radiate heat. The air feels heavy. But after reducing heat absorption, the room stabilizes differently. Not freezing. Not artificial. Just lighter. Easier to cool. That's the hidden power of reflective cooling. Now here's another thing people overlook. Attics. Because once roof temperatures rise, attics become giant heat chambers, sometimes reaching 140 degrees or more. That heat slowly radiates downward for hours, especially at night. That's why some bedrooms still feel hot long after sunset. The house is releasing stored solar energy back into the room. Now imagine reducing roof heat itself. Suddenly the attic cools faster. Ceilings stay cooler. Rooms stop absorbing as much radiant heat. And the AC finally gets a chance to catch up. Now here's where utility companies quietly benefit from the opposite situation. The hotter your structure becomes, the harder cooling systems work. Longer runtimes, higher power demand, higher bills. Every extra degree trapped inside walls and ceilings increases cooling load dramatically. Now think about this. Millions of homes absorb solar heat all day, then spend enormous amounts of electricity trying to remove it afterward, instead of reducing absorption first. That's backwards. And older builders understood that. Now here's where reflective mineral coatings became common historically. Farmhouses, Mediterranean homes, desert structures, storage buildings, animal shelters. Because before electricity, people had no choice except understanding thermal behavior properly. And one of the oldest tricks was simple. Reflect sunlight. Don't absorb it. Now modern industries turned cooling into a machine problem. But older civilizations treated cooling like a heat management problem. Huge difference. Now here's something researchers discovered during urban heat studies. Dark roofs and surfaces dramatically increase surrounding temperatures. Entire neighborhoods become hotter because buildings continuously absorb and radiate solar energy. That's why cities often feel warmer than surrounding rural areas. Stored heat everywhere. Concrete, asphalt, dark roofing. Everything holding thermal energy. Now imagine the opposite. Reflective surfaces. Lower absorption. Lower radiant heat. Cooler surrounding air. Simple physics. Now here's another hidden reason rooms feel hotter during summer. Radiant heat feels different than air temperature. Even when air technically measures cooler, warm ceilings and walls can still make a room feel uncomfortable. That's why some rooms feel heavy. The surfaces themselves are radiating warmth continuously. Now imagine reducing that surface heat directly. Suddenly the room feels different, balanced, stable, easier to breathe in. Now here's where airflow matters too. Once rooms absorb less thermal energy, air circulation becomes far more effective. Fans work better. AC cycles shorten. Temperature stabilizes faster. Everything improves together because the room itself stops fighting against cooling. Now think about how most people handle summer heat. Lower thermostat, higher bills, more AC usage, more frustration. Meanwhile, the structure keeps absorbing massive amounts of sunlight every single afternoon. Quietly, constantly. Now here's the ironic part. Human beings solved passive cooling centuries ago. Long before compressors. Long before smart thermostats. Long before electricity itself. But somehow, that knowledge slowly disappeared from mainstream construction. Because machines became easier to sell than simplicity. Now here's where things become even stranger. Some traditional whitewashed buildings in Mediterranean climates maintained indoor temperatures dramatically lower than surrounding outdoor air. Without compressors. Without refrigerant. Without electricity. Because once heat absorption drops, the structure itself behaves differently. Thermal buildup slows down. Radiant heat decreases. And indoor air stabilizes naturally. Now compare that to modern suburban homes. Dark shingles, dark siding, minimal airflow, massive attic heat, everything designed around mechanical cooling dependence. And every summer, the same cycle repeats. Higher bills, longer AC runtimes, hot upstairs rooms, sleepless nights. Meanwhile, the roof keeps absorbing sunlight like a giant solar battery. Now here's something most homeowners never realize until they physically touch it. A dark roof under summer sunlight can become almost untouchable, painfully hot. But reflective white surfaces stay dramatically cooler under the exact same conditions. That temperature difference matters more than people think, because every degree prevented at the roof reduces heat entering the house below. Now here's where reflective coatings become powerful. They interrupt heat before the structure stores it. That's the hidden advantage. Not stronger cooling afterward. Less heat from the beginning. Now imagine walking upstairs during peak summer heat. And instead of that trapped heavy warmth, the room feels stable, lighter, calmer. The ceiling isn't radiating heat downward. The walls don't feel warm. The AC finally feels effective again. Not because it became stronger. Because the room stopped absorbing so much heat in the first place. That's the real difference. Now to be clear, a white mineral coating alone won't turn your house into a refrigerator. Climate matters. Ventilation matters. Humidity matters. Insulation matters. Airflow matters. But reducing heat absorption? That changes far more than most people realize. Especially upstairs. Especially in rooms exposed to heavy sunlight. Now here's the truth most homeowners never hear. Cooling a room isn't just about adding cold air. It's about preventing heat buildup before it starts. That's the real battle. And once less heat enters the structure, everything changes. Your comfort, your airflow, your energy bill, even your sleep. Because sometimes, the problem isn't weak cooling. It's excessive heat absorption. And once that changes, the entire room starts feeling different.